All right, everybody, let's go ahead and get started. I've got 6:30. I know we have a number of people joining us on the live stream. I don't know what the numbers are. Nathan, are we okay on the live stream? We good? Okay, so we're live. Okay. So we're going to move quickly in the introductory segment of the program tonight. William's here from NVIDIA. I know that Agentic AI is a popular topic. That's the real reason you're here. But we are, before we get started and turn it over to William, we've got a few announcements. So first, we want to welcome you. Thank you for being here. Those that are joining remotely, you can't see this, but there's a big crowd here tonight at IBM. We're grateful for that. There are a lot of places you could be. How many people are here for the first time tonight? We got a lot of first-timers. Okay, very good. So I think the majority have probably been to one of our meetups or the All Things Open conference before, but a good number of you are here for the first time. So on behalf of the All Things Open team and our speakers and our partners and IBM, our venue host, thank you very, very much. We're very grateful. We hope you'll join us again. We hope you enjoy what you see. You get a lot of value out of tonight, a lot of benefit. Because again, we know we've been around long enough to understand there are other things you could be doing tonight, but you've chosen to be with us. So we'll never take that for granted, and we will always appreciate that very, very much. So thank you all. We at All Things Open, we're the host of this meetup. We've been doing meetups for probably 6 to 7 years. We've been hosting the All Things Open conference. This will be year 13, and this is the website that you see on the screen behind me. This will be year 13. Our first year of hosting this conference was 2013. And again, that makes this year, 2025, year 13. So we're very grateful to have been around that long. And even before that, I was personally hosting open source events for probably 5 years before that. Let's roll back the clock all those years ago. All those years ago, we were using Linux, we were using open source technologies, and we recognized then that a lot of other people were doing that. But there was, at that time, and all of you that are young here, on the younger side, you may not remember these days, but YouTube was not always a thing. There wasn't, educational content wasn't widely available. There were books, but even the number of books and the topics that the books covered were somewhat limited. So there were limited opportunities. There were conferences and events, but even those were limited in number. And not all of them were accessible. A lot of them were really expensive, or maybe, didn't feature the content that I wanted access to or would like to have seen. So we decided to spin something up all those years ago. And now that's probably going back 15 to 18 years ago in that general time frame, in that range. So the first event that we ever hosted, we had maybe 150 people show up, and they showed up regionally from other cities and other states, and people hopped day flights in. And at that point, we were just like, wow, there are a lot of other people out there like us using these technologies that want to network with other people, get to know other people that are doing the same things. We basically wanted to meet people just like us. So, and we've been doing this ever since. So all these years later, we still believe in the educational value of in-person meetups and conferences and events, and just the networking too. Sometimes it's not, the old cliche, right? The reason things become cliches is because there's a kernel of truth. It's not always what you know. There are times when it's who you know. So in my opinion, there's no substitute in that regard for in-person events. These meetups just like the one you're at tonight, and then conferences. So open source all these years later is still a gateway to opportunity. If you look at a lot of the emerging, influential, most impactful technologies today, there's an open source component to nearly all of them, and I think it's always going to be that way. So it pays to educate yourself on the open source component of things and stay updated on the technology. So that's what we try to do through the conferences and through the meetup. So we, again, are your hosts. If you ever have a question, you can find us online at allthingsopen.org. And then again, you're looking at the conference website that we just launched today. Again, it's year 13. You'll notice 13 lucky symbols on that website. So a lot of people think 13 is unlucky. We view it just the opposite. We think it's extremely lucky, and this one's going to be the luckiest one of them all. And you can see symbols of good luck and good fortune from different cultures around the world. So we thought that would be a pretty cool theme. So I would encourage you to check out the website. That's 2025.allthings.org. Our next meetup, we just announced it today. You're at the one here tonight, obviously. We're going to skip July. July is a very busy month. We might announce a networking event, a fun networking event in July, but we found that July is the busiest month of the year in regard to travel and vacation and things like that. So our next one is going to be Tuesday evening, August the 12th. Wealth, and Fidelity Investments will be our host. And I think our last one was at Fidelity. Brent Laster was our speaker. And some of you here in this room, I know, were there at Fidelity, so you know kind of where you're going. But the one will be August the 12th. The topic in August is going to be open source and just technology jobs in general. Taylor Dessine, if you've ever, maybe I'm guessing a lot of you know Taylor, he's going to be our speaker. And then we're going to have a panel discussion of hiring managers from large tech companies, some startups and things like that, a really good mix of hiring managers talking about the job environment and the job atmosphere these days. I think it's top of mind for everybody. The job landscape has changed so much over the last 5 years, and I think a lot of people want to know sort of what goes on behind the scenes, sort of behind the curtains. How many resumes are you getting for every job opening? What's the impact of bots on, how many of the resumes that you're getting are real people? I mean, these are conversations that people are having. What does your hiring pattern look like moving forward? Do you expect to hire more people or fewer people? People are asking these types of questions. Maybe some of you tonight are here to maybe network and maybe find a job or learn about an open opportunity. So we've made that the topic of the August meetup. So I would encourage you. It's been open maybe 6 hours or so, and we've had about 120 RSVPs. So we know there's a lot of interest in it, but I encourage you to RSVP for that meetup. Register for the All Things Open conference. Registration for this open today. It's $99. We do this every single year. It's called the $99 Early Bird Special. It includes programming for both core days of the event, Monday, October the 13th this year, and Tuesday, October the 14th. And it's a really good time. We expect 5,000 people from all over the country, really from all over the world. Last year, I think 30 plus countries were represented. So it's a true international event at the Raleigh Convention Center. But again, the early bird stays open through July 1st, Tuesday, July 1st. So you got about 3 weeks to take advantage of that. We've got promo posters for the conference here tonight. We brought about 100 with us. If you run an office or if you're in an office and you'd like to let other people know about the event, or if you just want one for yourself, they're pretty cool collector's items, and a lot of people get those. So I think Jason has those in the back, I think. Are those available in the back, Jason? Or are they over on, oh no, actually they're over on the table. And you can find me too. Before you leave, just find me and I'll be happy to get you a promo poster. Hopefully you're able to get a shirt. We always make shirts available. They're always free. Again, no strings attached. The only thing that we ask is that you just let other people know about the event. And you're doing that by wearing the shirt, because these are really soft, cool shirts and ones that you'll actually wear. We actually spend the extra money to get shirts that are very comfortable. I want to thank IBM for hosting us tonight. They have been partners for a really long period of time, probably more than a decade. I know more than a decade. There's no probably to that. And Brad Topol and Sadev are our primary contacts here on site. So I've worked with Brad personally for a decade, I would say, and Sadev almost as long. So Brad, why don't you come up and say a few words? And I think you're going to change the slides over really quickly here, and want to give you an opportunity to talk about Granite and a lot of the cool things that you're doing. For those of you that don't know, IBM has been active in the open source space for a really long period of time. I first came to know about it with Watson, and I think all those years ago, the original Watson, a lot of people didn't know a lot of open source technology made that possible. So when I learned that, I made it my business to educate myself more about what IBM was doing, more on what they were doing. And when I did that, I was really amazed. And all these years later, it's still the same case. So with all that said, now I think it's Granite and AI.
Sure.
Yeah.
Thank you, Todd. Hi, everyone. My name is Brad Topol. I'm a IBM Distinguished Engineer and Director of Open Technologies, and it is really our honor and pleasure to be able to host an All Things Open Meetup. We do it several times a year. We are so fortunate here in Raleigh to have a first-class open source conference that's here every year, and then they've expanded to do AI because they were like, we can do AI too. And I was at the inaugural one. It was fantastic. So, like Todd said, I've been there since the beginning, and what a great conference with great speakers and very affordable. So please, take advantage of it. It is lucky number 13. I was laughing about that, Todd, because my first house I bought was lot 13, and then when I moved, my second house was lot 13, and I think there's only been 3 or 4 ghosts in it, so it's not that bad. No, so very lucky. But IBM's huge into open source, huge supporter of open source, and I just wanted to cover 2 projects that are open source projects that I thought people might be interested in. One of which is we've got the Granite family of open source large language models. From the very big, they come in all different sizes, 8 billion parameters all the way down to 500 million parameters. And we've got a family of them, all Apache 2 license. Believe it or not, IBM, open source, it's all Apache 2 license for those large language models. You can do whatever you want with them. And so we have them for, really nice ones for Granite for time series. So if you do a lot of time series stuff, a lot of the financial folks are interested in that. Obviously vision, geospatial, extra guardrails and extra protection with Granite Guardian. So please, and the benchmarks are doing really well. We've got these Granite recipes. If you look at that Granite recipe link, and it shows you how to use Granite with everything you could think of. And in fact, at the end of this evening, we've got 2 of our interns here. One's going to show Granite with Llama Index integrated together, and the other one's going to show Granite with LM Studio and doing some tool invocations. We'll set them up when everything's done, when everybody's talking. So yeah, check out Granite. We think you're going to really like it. And then, for the very advanced stuff, we've got a really cool project that was just announced at the Red Hat Summit between IBM and Red Hat, and we have several partners out there. NVIDIA is a partner on this, and Intel and Google, and it's called LLMD. It's an open source project for distributed AI inferencing at scale and highly efficient. So they do a lot of interesting techniques to, with KV caching and AI-aware routing to really speed up and make efficient the ability to run those inferencing engines, which reduces the cost. So I highly recommend that you go look at LMD if you're interested in what's going on in open source. And so, Todd, that's all I have. And again, I hope you all enjoyed the pizza. You can see we crushed at least 24 boxes. We love this crowd. We will probably, if we keep getting crowds like this, we'll move to the bigger ballroom over here on left. Like the country clubs, you have the small ballroom, then we have the big ballroom. So we may be doing that. But again, thank you so much for coming, and welcome.
Thanks for having me. Thank you. Again, IBM's been a longtime partner of ours, and we're really, really appreciative of that. We do not take that for granted. I want to have Jason Hibbets come up. How many people here have heard of We Love Open Source? It's our educational online portal. People contribute articles. We interview people podcast style. We release new content every week. Jason heads that up for us. So anyway, I know Jason's going to extend the invite, but it's a great opportunity to on-ramp into open source or write an article or contribute in a lot of different ways. So Jason, come on up.
Thank you, Todd.
Yeah, of course.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jason Hibbets. I'm the managing editor for We Love Open Source. Some great news from last week. We launched our first downloadable content. It's about 3 open source alternatives to Photoshop. Worked with our author, Don Watkins, to get that prepared. It is beautiful. It's like the most beautiful PDF I think I've ever seen. Anyway, we invite you to contribute to our blog, whether you're a writer, a blogger. You can write about various different topics. We have AI is a very hot topic right now, Linux, and a variety of things. You can write about stuff that you just learned. You can write about something that you just taught someone, all those different things. So if you go to allthingsopen.org, click on We Love Open Source, and you'll be able to find the contribution form there. Anything else? All right. Thank y'all.
All right. Thank you, buddy. Jason does a great job for us, and again, we greatly appreciate that. Those of you that don't know me, I have a tendency to overthink people, but again, it's only because I truly do appreciate it, and I've lived now enough life to know that, when people do a good job for you and are superstars, that's something to be very, very grateful for. So Jason's done a wonderful, wonderful job. Okay, so before we get started, I know you're here to listen to William and hear his presentation. Would people, would you guys stand up and move to the center a little bit? Maybe stand up and move over this way, or maybe stand up and maybe move over this way. We've got a number of people in the back that don't have seats, and I really, really appreciate that. I'm sorry to ask you guys to move. We do this at our conferences all the time. And thank you all for doing that. Trust me, I know how this goes. I attend a lot of events. Thank you all. Those of you on the live stream, if you could see this, you'd love this. This is a community working together to accommodate and help others, and this is a really cool thing to see. All right, I wanted to do this before William gets started because I know it can get tough standing up for 45 minutes or however long William's going to speak. Okay, so with that said, William is a developer advocate at NVIDIA. The topic tonight is Agentic AI for developers and data scientists. A lot of you in this crowd are developers and or data scientists, and then a lot of you watching are very interested in this topic. We knew that interest would be very, very high in this topic, and that has certainly turned out to be the case. So with all that said, William, you can structure this in any way that you want, meaning speakers handle questions in different ways. Some speakers will deliver 5 or 10 minutes of content and then say, does anybody have questions? Other speakers will go, 15, 15, 15, or other speakers will just go straight through and deliver content for 30 to 45 minutes and ask that questions are saved until the end. So right now what we have is about 45 minutes allocated for the presentation, and then another 5 to 10 minutes out, sort of set aside or designated for Q&A. But you can do that any way that you want. Okay. So maybe, put some thought into it, let everybody know how they should pose questions if they have one, if you want to take them as they come, or if you just want everybody to wait until the end. You can handle it however you want. And we will edit accordingly, okay? So just know that if you take questions in the middle of the presentation, it's not going to mess up the recording because our recording team, they're very, very good. So we can edit, anything that we need to.
All right.
Okay? So with all that said, please welcome William Hill from NVIDIA. We really appreciate you being here. Thank you.
Thank you, Todd. Hello, everyone. I am William Hill. I am a developer advocate from NVIDIA. And I watched Mark give a great talk, I guess 1 or 2 meetups ago. And then him and Melanie did like a prompt engineering. And so I begged Todd, I was like, Todd, I got something to say. I want to share some stuff, Agentic AI or agents are really popular right now. I'd like to talk about them because, I've seen other people do it, and I want to share it, what I know, because that's my passion and it's also my job. But so to start off with, that's my inspiration. And first, before I get started, thank you, Todd. Thank you, IBM and Brian, for hosting this. It's really cool, very nice facility. I used to work here, so it brings back memories. I enjoyed my time at IBM. But what inspires me, we all have our motivations as to why we got into tech or what we think is cool and what we focus on. Sometimes we're just in the job market and we want to catch up. Or sometimes you just get bit by curiosity and you want to dig into something. And so these agents were very, they're trending, and I had it on my to-do list, like what is the flux capacitor, so to speak, of agentic AI, right? And so one of my coworkers basically built an agent, a coding agent, and I took his code and I boiled it down until I got it to 10 lines of code. All right. So let me just show you that code before my Colab notebook runs out, before it expires. And I really mean 10 lines of code. And I wanted to make this as simple as possible, even if you're not a developer, so that you can build your own agent, right? And this is the thing that interests me a lot. And I'm going to dive into what this code means. But first, I just wanted to show you, and just to make sure I'm being honest here, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4. Now this is a long line of code here. There's one long line of code. And thanks to Mark and Melanie, they actually helped me with this one. All right, what was that? 3? I can't remember. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I think I've miscounted. There's 10. Trust me, there's 10. I did play a little golf with these Python lines of code to squeeze it into 10, but I wanted to share this so that if anyone else is interested in making a coding agent or a travel agent, whatever it is, just here's the kernel of code to get it working, and hopefully just like I was inspired, I want to pay that forward and let you be inspired by it too. And I'll go ahead and run it, like I said, and I'll explain all that. That's not a line of code, but I'm going to explain that in a minute. Let's see here. Live demos are always interesting. Let's see here. I'm just going to run through these 10 lines of code and this very long line of code. And this is the agent. So this is what this is, as far as I can tell, the bare bones amount of code to create an agent. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 lines of code to make an agent that creates code and runs it. And again, I'm going to explain these. All right, that worked. Cool, cool, cool. This is my data. We don't need that. All right, so that's my agent built, and now let's use it. Of course, I tested it before I got here. I didn't want to, have some sort of 404 or whatever. And hey, it worked, but it looks different. And this uses all free resources, right? I'm using Google Colab, which is a free service. You can get a free GPU. I'll get into that in a second. And then this is calling NVIDIA's build.nvidia.com service where we're hosting LLMs that you can use. And this is a big giant LLM that generated all this code that we created this agent with. All right, so that is what we're going to discuss in about 30 minutes. Raise your hand if you have a question. I didn't even think about that. Yes, sir.
Will the slides be available?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. All right. So, all right, this is the demo I was going to run. This is a slide. And again, this is the agent that we built, and it's really just, a function. Whatever we put in here, it'll do its best to give us back code and run that code and display it. All right. So like Todd said, I'm an NVIDIA developer advocate. My job is to listen to you, figure out if our open source APIs, number one, are usable. Do our open source libraries provide value? Does it make the GPUs easy to use? That's kind of the whole point of this. And then to also create content to show how to use our open source libraries. I focus on machine learning, data science, AI, and my boss just kind of steers me in the right direction. But if you have an idea or you want to know how to use something, hit me up. Ask me a question and I'll see if we can make some content or whatever you need, a blog. All right, so that's me. So yeah, and just a little about me. I've lived here since '96, except for 4 years in the military. Came right back. I've worked around RTP. I've worked at IBM, Red Hat, SAS, Google before NVIDIA, and I've been at NVIDIA for about 1.5 years in this developer advocate role. It's probably the best job I've had. It's getting to take all the stuff I've learned and try to make it easy and share it. So these are the videos that me and my team makes. Like that's our latest video there by Katya. She made a video on kind of similar to what we're going over tonight, except it was a RAG application and she used an agent to create a React web interface for the agent. Really cool. We also have shorts. There's me right there. These are 3 minutes or less, and they try to just get right to the point. So if you subscribe to that and you want to watch very short videos on how to do just a little nugget of something, that's our channel. Now, as I was making these videos, right, I'm new to marketing, I'm new to developer advocacy. Claude Code came out, and I decided, I want to make my videos a little more interesting. And I wanted to make animated plots, right? This sounds very hard. And I knew that this library called Manum was an open source Python library for creating these animated plots, right? I don't know how to create graphics, but I know how to write Python. All right, so let me just run it again. So to create that, I used Claude Code. I didn't write a single line of code. I just sat there and interacted, just like I showed you in the very beginning, that demo of us interacting with an agent. I sat there and Claude Code would create something and it wasn't great, and I'd threaten it. I'd say, center the plot, Claude, or you're going to jail. And it wouldn't do it. And then I eventually kind of told it, use this thing called FFmpeg to look at the last frame to make sure the plot was centered. And at the end of it, it made this thing, and I was able to use it in some content that showed how fast this CUDA for data frames was at reading data. Okay, so when I saw how good it was, I was like, how does this work? What is the flux capacitor of this Claude code? And that's in essence what I'm sharing tonight. Those 10 lines are how you create, right? You take those 10 lines of code and you add to it. Add a UI, or make 2 of them and have them talk to each other, whatever your imagination tells you. All right. Let's see here. Okay. So, and this is my opinion. It might be wrong. Hopefully it's right. So there's kind of 3 ingredients for this agentic data science. As I was playing with it, as I was learning it, and I was trying to, what are the lines of code that are needed? They kind of fell into 3 buckets, okay? And I'll go over these 3 buckets because all the lines of code fit into one of these 3 buckets. So the first thing, if we're doing data science or machine learning, obviously we need data and some data processing. And, whoops, let's see here. All right, so data. We need some data. Now, I just went and got this sample data from Kaggle, if you're familiar. This is where you do data science and machine learning competitions. So the data is from here. If you want to replicate this, again, the slides I'll send out, and I'll send out that notebook, a link to that notebook in Colab. Again, it's free. You just need I think a Gmail account or something to run it with the GPU. All right, so that's our data. Just click this download button right here. I've already done that. I've got the data. It comes as a zip. All right. So if you're familiar with data science, machine learning, generally you're going to take your data and denormalize it into a single frame, right? If you're trying to do supervised learning, you're going to have one spreadsheet, so to speak, and there's going to be one column that you want to predict, like next quarter's sales, or is there traffic on the way to IBM tonight? Whatever it is you're trying to do, you generally want to have it in one frame of data. The common tools in Python to do this are Spark, Polars, and Pandas, and there's a reason I'm mentioning that will become clear in a second. So again, this is what our agent is actually going to give us, is the code. And I'm asking for Pandas. I'm more familiar with Pandas these days than I am with Spark. And then there's this new thing called Polars. Okay. And this might not seem like a big deal, but when you're doing larger and larger sets of data, how fast you run that code matters. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because, as a developer advocate for NVIDIA, I represent a lot of open source projects, but one that's near and dear to my heart, is kind of an unsung hero, is that we accelerate Pandas, Spark, and Polars on a GPU without having to change any code. And I think it's kind of a victim of success, right? It's open source, and you don't have to change any code. You can make your Pandas run on a GPU, and it's going to be 10 to 100 times faster. And the reason that's important is if you're doing agentic workloads, you're generally trying to do lots and lots of trials. So when I was trying to make that Claude code give me the Python to make an animated graph so I can put it in a YouTube video, it took me a long time. It took a lot of iterations and a lot of frustration. So the faster that execution speed, the more trials, the more spaghetti you get to throw at the wall and see which spaghetti sticks. Now the interesting thing is, both of these are kind of done for you, right? The agent is going to give you the Pandas code or your Spark code, and then you're going to run it on the GPU, right? I'm from NVIDIA. I have to talk about GPUs. Okay, so let me show you how easy that is, right? Let me see if I'll just open up a new Colab notebook. Remember, the whole point of this is it's easy, it's approachable. I don't have to have a GPU today. So if I hit new notebook, I don't know, can you see that in the back? It's at the bottom. All right, so I'm going to hit new notebook. All right, so if you're not familiar, Google Colab is a free service. They have a paid tier, which I have. It's like $10 a month, but you don't have to get that. So this is where you copy and paste code. So the code I'm sharing with you tonight, you can copy and paste it in here. But the first thing you have to do is you have to pick, your cloud instance, so to speak. And these are hot cloud instances. You don't have to wait for them to spin up. So over on the right hand, we have this little arrow here. Let me see if I can make that bigger. Yeah. All right. So this little arrow here, I click that. I say change runtime type. All right. And this is where you pick your hardware that you want this Python coding environment to run. All right. Now here we are. If you have a paid service, you can get, an A100 or an L4. Again, it's really a pretty good deal. You can get data center quality GPUs for $10 a month. But the T4 is a really nice one. This is 15 gigabytes of RAM. The CPU itself has, I think, 13 gigs of RAM. All right, so now that I've chosen my GPU, NVIDIA GPU, I get this connect. And that will spin up, connect without, all right, I have too many open right now. All right, let me go over to this one that is working. The first thing you have to do is, that I like to do, I like to verify that I have my GPU. So here you can see this is my GPU, and it has 15 gig of RAM. So in LLM world, inference and training, RAM is very important. That GPU memory is where you load all those billions of weights. And you can see the CPU itself has 13 gigabytes of RAM. And the first thing you have to do is run this magic command, load or % load _ ext cuDF.pandas. All right. Once you've done that, once you've chosen your GPU and you've run this command, raise your hand if you're familiar with pandas or what pandas is. Okay, cool. All right. So you have to run that before you import pandas, and I'll show you why. If I say import pandas as PD, and then I look at the PD, the alias for the library there, you can see I have this fast equals cuDF and slow equals pandas. All right, so like I said, when your agent is giving that code, you want it to run as fast as possible. What this is saying is, since I've loaded this cuDF.pandas, this is going to take my pandas code and run it on the GPU. So not everything is parallelizable. If it's not, it will run it on the CPU, and your data frame is going to sync between the two memories, run it on the CPU, and then sync it back to the GPU. That feature is called Unified Virtual Memory. Very cool stuff. I learned about it way too late, and I learned about it about a month ago. So when you load a data frame, it's going to load it into your GPU RAM and a copy into system RAM. Now, another cool feature is, everyone complains, you always need more memory, right? If you actually run out of GPU memory or oversubscribe, it will spill over to CPU RAM. Again, super cool. I just learned about this. Shame on me. But if you load a data frame and you have too much data, you load it into RAM, and if you did it, it would fill up. That green line would turn yellow, up, and then turn red, and then you'd see system RAM start to fill up as it spilled over to CPU. Just a cool thing. And that is part of CUDA for data frame. So that's what this, scroll back up here. You see this cuDF, that is CUDA, which is our drivers in software. If you probably have heard that word before, but it is like the C++ code that makes the GPUs easy to use. And so this is CUDA for data frames being Pandas, Polars, Spark. All of those three systems can be accelerated on a GPU without having to change it. So if you have Pandas code today, if you use Pandas and you put this at the top, it will run your Pandas code on the GPU 10 to 100 times faster, which again is important because those agents are running that code and giving the feedback, running the code, giving the feedback. So the faster you can do that, the more trials you can run, the better, ideally, in theory, your result will be. Okay. I think I over-explained that, but I prefer to over-explain than under-explain. All right, so I've already covered this. This is Colab. If you're not familiar, this is a really good place to test out, prototype your agentic AI. And this is just a pretty picture of a T4. That is the GPU we used, 15 gigabytes of memory. All right, so all of that software I was talking about, the CUDA for data frames, is open source, of course. You can go download it from GitHub, play with it, submit PRs, whatever you want to do. And there's actually multiple open source GPU accelerators. There's the one we just talked about, cuDF or CUDA for data frames. There's also CUDA for machine learning. This is going to accelerate scikit-learn, XGBoost. I think that's it. If you're into Network X, that cuGraph, and again, you don't have to change your code. If you write scikit-learn or use XGBoost for machine learning modeling, this is going to accelerate it either usually with a parameter or just something real easy. You don't have to change your code. All right, so I covered that, how to use it. Now, if you're not in a notebook environment, if you're just in an IDE or running command line because you like that, that -m cuDF.pandas, and if you have your code written today, adding that module cuDF.pandas will also accelerate it on the GPU. You can even do other things like profile it to see which functions which pandas functions are accelerated on a GPU. All right, this is the landing page for that software. Again, this is, we have to make content for all of our software, but this is just my favorite, one of my favorites. These are all of the open source projects we accelerate. There's the people that use it. It's a lot of them. PyTorch, hey Walmart. So you've got XGBoost, scikit-learn, a couple of others. Dask for creating clusters. So if you want to make multi-agents on different nodes talking to each other, all of that works out the box. All right, so if this is interesting to you and you want to know how to install it, it's pretty easy. You go to rapids.ai, you click install, and there's like this little wizard here. And I go with stable. If there's some new feature, like we have some new feature being announced at GTC Paris today or tomorrow, multi-GPU streaming for polars. So then you want to go with a nightly. I like pip. I'm going to click pip. CUDA 12, if you want to know which version of CUDA you are using, you can just do NVIDIA.SMI. This is going to give you the details. You can see I have CUDA 12.4. All right, and if you really get your hands dirty with agentic AI, all of this deep learning stuff, that CUDA version will become important, and so that's how you figure out your CUDA version. It's already on 12, and just like I was mentioning, all those open source projects that get accelerated, this is the list right here. So we've got QVS, if you're familiar with RAG, LLM, RAG. QVS is CUDA for vector search. So if you have a vector database, this is going to accelerate it. It's actually already baked into most vector databases that are popular. If you're doing like large data graphics, this QX filter does that. These two are for network analytics. cuGraph is for network analytics. Then of course, QML is for scikit-learn, XGBoost. And so you just click which ones you want to install, and you can see down here, this command is adding those things. So pip install, instead of pypy.com, it's pypy.nvidia.com to go get those repositories, and it will install it on your computer. If you use Conda, it will go ahead and you can see, you can just copy and paste that, run it on your computer. Any questions so far? Yes, sir.
Yeah, I saw that you did for grading XGBoost, do you have or have plans for light GBM?
Light GBM is actually GPU accelerated.
Oh, it is? Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
yeah. That one and Cat Boost, which I think of as like the top tree-based machine learning algorithms, those are all GPU accelerated. All right. So those are the first two ingredients. Now the popular ingredient, the trending, the hot ingredient is calling out to the LLM, creating that agent from the LLM, which is what I showed in those 6 lines of code, so to speak. Now for me, I like things to be simple. When I see something is super complicated, I just get frustrated. I want to know what's the core minimum I need to build my own agent. Or if someone's asking me about it, if you're trying to get into this through work or something, showing them that you can build your own and being able to talk about it confidently. I just want to know those core pieces that are important. All right. So there are lots and lots of hosted LLMs. Right, we've got ChatGPT, we've got Claude AI, and the list goes on and on. So this is a free one, okay? Build.nvidia.com. This is the one I'm going to use. Just like Colab is free within reason, right? You can't just mine Bitcoins on Colab. They're going to shut you down at some point. Same thing here. So build.nvidia.com, and let me just show you how that works. So if I go to build.nvidia.com, looks like I'm already logged in. So you can see up here, I'm logged in right here. Let me do a private window. So I go to build.nvidia.com. All right, sure. If I say log in, you can see it way down here, NVIDIA Developer Program. You sign up for this, it's free. You'll get some emails. I think you can opt out, but if you're trying to get into AI and agentic AI, the stuff you get is important. This is our developer. This is not for business managers or anything like that. This is for people who want to start working with AI. You sign up for that. You'll get an email with a code. You punch it in, and now you have an account. And then you'll see something like this. All right. What you will see when you first log in is you'll see, just like you have this filled in green button, you'll see a filled in button that's green right here. And this is critical, right? You have to have an API key to use all of the LLMs. Just pretty much all popular LLMs are hosted here. So you click this button, yours will be create API key. You generate an API key, and I'll go ahead and delete me right now, because lots of people saw me. All right, so I'll do 7 days. And then this is gonna generate a key. Look away, look away. All right, so that key right there is what you'll need to start prompting. Just like you go to ChatGPT and you put in a prompt, we're gonna do that using this key to Llama, giant Llama, 250 or 256 billion parameter models. Let me go ahead and delete me right now. Yes. Okay. So when you have that key, right, safeguard it, because even though it's free, it is limited. You can't build your startup empire, your next, agentic AI app using this. It will, I think it's 40 calls per minute or something like that. So it's enough to get started. It's enough to get your hands dirty. But again, you can't build your startup empire LLM company with this. Now, the models that are available to you, they're pretty much all of them. Can you see that? All right, so there's, I don't know, if you go over to use case, image to text is always fun. So I'll go image to text, and it'll show, there's Mistral, Llama, there should be diffusion in here somewhere, or I guess these are built on top of diffusion. And when you click on a model, if you're familiar with Hugging Face, you have your model card. This will give you all the information about that LLM. what it's for, what the underlying foundational model was, on and on and on. Yeah, a lot of stuff. I would copy and paste that into ChatGPT and summarize it. But let's see here. So this to me is a really cool feature. Again, this is free. This is crazy. So this thing is hosted on some giant GPU, and you can use it right away. So if I type something in here, I don't know, create an image of someone trying to give a meetup presentation. All right. You can see over on the right side, it's giving me the code. It's giving me the code, and in fact, it's giving it to me in Python at the top here, Node. So you can make an interface with this, a cool web app, or command line. And I've never done. I don't know what this is going to do, but you can see it's thinking. Hopefully, it gives us something cool and interesting and entertaining. I don't know what that is. Anyways, you can play with all these models. But what's important for our use is, since we're making our own agent, is this right here. Okay, that is the URL that we're going to send our prompts to, along with the name of the model. And this looks like an older one. And it's going to, our prompt is going to go to this model, hosted in one of NVIDIA's data centers on a giant GPU. It's going to churn, it's going to think, and then it's going to give us that response. All right. And so at that point, we're really just kind of using a free ChatGPT with a very powerful model. All right. We haven't really done anything agentic at that point. But just wait. All right. So the model that I used in the demo, was this Llama 3.1 Nematron Ultra 253 billion parameters V1. So if you're familiar, Llama is kind of one of the big players for creating foundational LLMs. They create the behemoths, and in fact, this one that we're hosting was built from the Meta Llama 405 billion parameter LLM. So if that doesn't mean anything to you, it would never fit on my laptop. Let me put it that way. And so the very smart engineers at NVIDIA took that foundational model and they fine-tuned it and they reduced it and they boiled it down to this Llama 3.1 Nematron Ultra 253 billion parameters. Again, this won't work on your laptop. And they fine-tuned it to do things like math, coding, reasoning, chat, tool calling. But as I'll show you, you can use any model you want. In fact, you can use a commercial model. It's just the name of the model you put in there is what our agent is going to call. So that is the model I use because I was told it was really good and it worked for me. All right. So we're going to start jumping into the code here, and this is a prompt. All right. And it might seem excessive. It might seem excessive, right? When I'm using ChatGPT or Claude, I don't put prompts this big in there. And if you remember, multi-shot and single shot, this is all the shots in a prompt right here. Because I knew I was going to show a bunch of people and I didn't want it to mess up. So I was like, you better do it right. I even gave it sample code, a shot. I even told it right here, I'm like, I'm going to take what you give me and I'm going to run it with this Python. So give me stuff that works in that code snippet right there. All right, this is overkill because I really wanted it to work and not be embarrassed. All right, so if you notice, I have this role system, okay? And then there's the user portion. So there's really kind of two portions how I think of it. The role system portion is I'm telling the agent what to be. Right? You can be anything. You can be a real estate agent. You can be a product manager. I'm telling you what to be. In this case, I said, please, please, please be a really good data scientist, machine learning engineer, and make pretty plots and do really cool analysis. And then I said, what you give me, put it in these ticks Python, the typical markdown for displaying code. And I'm going to remove it, and I'm going to run it, and I'm going to give it a data frame. So give me that. Don't embarrass me. And it worked. Now, I had to change it, right? And just, full disclosure, some of the code it gave me was a little old. So I had to say, hide the warnings. Some of the plots were ugly. So I said up here, engaging, right? Engaging colorful plot. Not just a colorful plot. I want the plot to be engaging. Using Seaborn, which is I just like the way those plots look. All right. Also, if the model is old, I was doing another data set that had data, and I said, how old is the car? And I noticed the car age was wrong. And I was like, no, dummy, it's 2025. Do it right. And it did it right. Okay. So let's get in there. Let's get into this code. Finally, the fun part. All right. This is what's cool to me is that I played with that Claude code and it just seemed impossibly complex. And then I spent hours, to be fair, days, trying to create my own and make my own in simple code. And this is what I came up with. So, of course, like I said, in those 3 ingredients, we need data, right? So there's our data. This is a pandas data set displayed in a notebook. And I kind of cheated here. That's really a line of code, but I made it a parameter. But at least I made it a default parameter. And so if you're going to take this and start playing with it and riffing on it on your own, that's where you put your data, right? If you have a CSV or some sort of data set, you put it right there. Okay. Now the next part, this client equals open API. When I first looked at this, I was confused. I was like, no, I don't want that. I don't want ChatGPT. I want my own thing. Why are you? And I'm trying to get into the mind of my coworker who wrote this. I'm like, did he cheat? Like, what is this open API? Come to find out, it's just really a way of sending a prompt over the internet, okay? They standardized it. They open sourced it. So instead of writing a bunch of Python request code, they've kind of simplified the API. Once I figured that out, I was like, all right, that's cool. So to create that client right here, this OpenAI client, again, which is just, you see I have a base URL and an API key. All it's really doing is sending my prompt over the internet to wherever I tell it in this base URL. So for us, if you remember in build.nvidia.com, when I was playing with that thing just now, that was the URL. And then, of course, the NVIDIA API key. That's how we authenticate it. And then the model. So remember I said you can use any model you want. If you go through, and I played with a bunch. If you go into that build.nvidia.com and you look at all the different models, you can just copy and paste the name in there and see what output you got. They all kind of work for me. I guess they're just my requests are too simple. But these are kind of the key ingredients to building that LLM back and forth at the heart of your agentic AI. I feel like I forgot something. Yes. All right. One more thing. So when you get that API key, the one that I had to delete right away, in your notebook, you'll see this appropriate icon over here with the key. Okay. Promise to not copy and steal my key. Okay, never mind, it's hidden. All right. So in here, I have that NVIDIA underscore API underscore key, and that's where I pasted my key. And they even give you, Google's nice enough to give you this sample code. If you copy and paste that code into a notebook, it will give you an error because secret name is not actually the name. I found this out. You have to put that in there. I was recording this as I was doing it too. I was like, all right. So let me go down to the real code here. That key is going to be used, that Google code snippet is this right here. And then that API key goes into right here. Okay. So this client, this OpenAI client, again, is not actually ChatGPT. It's just a way of sending a request over the internet and getting the response, but they've bundled it up and made it easy to use. as you can see right here. So that client that we just created, actually I'm getting out of sync with my slides here. That client we created, right, we have that API endpoint, and then we have the API key, right, that creates the client. And now that we have that, that's kind of the core of our agentic AI, the core of our bot, so to speak. Now we're going to say client, chat, completions, create, and we're going to send all the stuff we need. So the model name, that was that Nemo Llama 3.1 Nemotron, or another model you want to use. The messages is the prompt, that big long thing, right, that we bundled up. And you have to put it in a certain format. So remember, role user, and then this is where we told the thing, you are a super smart machine learning engineer and you make really pretty plots. That's where we put that. But we also have our question. But we don't have the question yet, right? This is an agent. We don't have a question yet. That's what we do at the very end. But this variable, this query here, is going to hold that question. And you can see this is DF, is that data frame. The data that we put in there is going to add it to the prompt before we send it. Okay? So this is ultimately, just like when you go to ChatGPT and you write a question, this is creating one giant big prompt to send to that LLM. All right. And that's the visual for that idea. Okay. So once we send it, we're going to get a response. What's key here is stream equals false. Now, if you do decide to play with this, and I'll share that too, if you want to make it look cool, like when you talk with ChatGPT and it shows you what it's thinking, you have to make that stream equals true. But again, I wanted to make it 10 lines of code, so I said, no, just give it to me all at once. I don't want to make it look cool. I don't want to make it look simple. All right. So I get the response from the LLM. And here I do feel bad here. This is code golf right here. Essentially, I take the response, I peel off the tick, tick, tick Python at the beginning, and then I peel it off at the end. And then this exec down here, I don't know if you can see that at the very bottom, it's just going to run the Python code that I give. I'm going to give it a string of Python code, and that's where the magic happens. That's where the agent, that's where the LLM response becomes an agent, so to speak. So these lines of code are where you make your own agent. And I hope it's simple enough that, that we can go later on tonight, drink some coffee and make your own agent, or, whatever you're inspired to do. I hope that explains it enough. All right. So let me do the full demo here. And I'm going to ask it a question that it may or may not get right. Is this thing still running? Okay. So let me go back over again because, all right, so we load cuDF.pandas. Again, that's going to make all of our code run way faster on this GPU. We don't need this. All right, we actually don't need this. If you are running this on your own system and you want to use that Open AI way of calling an LLM, that's easy. That's how you install it, although you don't need this QQQ. I'm going to import this. This is just saying, I need to use these libraries. This is, since I'm using this little key over here, right, this sample code has been copied and pasted here. If you're running this on your own laptop or on a cloud instance, you would use this instead, assuming you have it in an environment variable. All right, again, a lot of effort went into this prompt here. And you can see down here, these 7 lines where I got frustrated and I was like, stop doing the wrong things, do the right things. And then I gave it an example. This is a single shot, so to speak. I gave it a sample Python data set and a sample question here with the total sales for each product. And then I said, this is what I want back. I want Python code that will run, okay? And then I don't know, the coworker I copied this from, he had that on his, so I just put it in mine too. So again, we have the query. This is when we start using the bot, right? This right here, we start using this agent, that is going to go into the query. And then the data we give it is CSV or whatever spreadsheet you have, whatever your data is. We put that there in DF or data frame. The endpoint, that's just NVIDIA.com, right, where we're going to send the request. This could be ChatGPT or some other AI endpoint, a thing you pay for. It could be some other, but I like free stuff, so I'm going to use that one. The key to authenticate it, to make sure we don't build an empire, and then the model name. Again, if you go to build.nvidia.com, you find a model you like better, or maybe you want to make a bot that generates images. Whatever you have in mind, put that model that's appropriate. Then these lines of code essentially take the prompt, bundle it up correctly, call the client, create the client, create the prompt, get my answer. Okay. Wait, I should be running this. All right. And then we start using the bot. All right, that's not a pretty plot. It's not bad, but it's not great. Let me run it again. Please be pretty. Hey, look at that. All right. So, and I did make one slightly more complicated one. I can't stand it. Oh no. Reconnect. All right. I made one where it would show the thinking process. So I set stream equal to true here. It looks like it's connecting. Let's see if I can get this to work. This is the same code, except I have stream equal to true, and then I have this little loop here. As I get the responses from the LLM, it gives me a piece, it gives me what it's thinking. I just go ahead and print it. That's really all it's doing. Then I run it. Okay. Let's see if I can make this a little smaller. All right. Oh wait, it's still, okay. I think the GPU, the cloud instance is starting to spin up. Oh no. All right, whatever. Let's do it. So that is the minimum lines of code you need to, wait, I know what the problem is. It needs data. All right. Unzip archive.zip. Okay. All right, here we go. All right, be cool. Yay. All right, there. It's giving me the code that it wants to run. It's giving me some comments. It's even giving me the age of the vehicles is marked blah, blah, blah. So that is one level cooler. That is 1 point cooler of an agent that you can build yourself. It was like three or four more lines of code. Now, one of my coworkers, Jay Roje, he made an even better agent. Again, open source. He basically took what I have here and used Streamlit. If you're familiar, Streamlit is a way of making a cool UI in Python. I think I have it working. Yeah. All right. So this is one file will create this agent. And so I'll go ahead and get the same data set. And now it's thinking, and it's calling, it's doing the same thing. Those 10 lines of code, this is essentially doing the same thing with a few more extra Python lines of code. And it's doing multiple prompts, right? So when you make your own agent, you have to create your own prompts. And when you get the feedback or when you get that prompt response, you might want to include that in the next thing. So all these multi-agents are talking to each other, all right? And so there, it gave us some potential questions to ask it. It gave us what the data looks like. I'll go ahead and put my prompt that I know works and see what happens. Here we go. Chat with your data. All right, so we've built our own ChatGPT for data science and coding. Hey, look at that, cool. All right, so this is just one level above, and I'll share the link to that. This is open source. I don't know if you can see that. This will be in the slides that I share. This is open source, and then that is the URL to the notebook with the 10 lines of code. DSAI 10 lines of code. If you want to play with this on your own, again, we'll share this. Now, before I keep going, are there any questions? Yes, sir.
So, why would you try to build something and build a NVIDIA.com versus using something lightweight, which is space?
That is a good question. That would probably be the next step.
Please repeat the question.
All right. So let me make sure I got this right. Why would I use NVIDIA.build.com instead of a local lighter LLM using Ollama or some sort of local, if I host my own smaller LLM locally? That would probably be something I did next. But for me, this is easier. And so I was trying to make it as easy as possible to do Ollama. I have to download Ollama, then pull a model, and then run the model. I think cool-wise, that's probably cooler. More cool points for that. But also, it requires more time. I feel like doing Colab, calling an already hosted LLM is easier than deploying a local one. Plus, to my dismay, MacBook doesn't have NVIDIA GPUs yet. That's the real answer. So, yeah. Anybody else have a question?
How do you prevent, especially in agentic workflows, the LLM from conjuring up new API names or function names?
Yeah, that happens. I've experienced that.
Repeat the question, please.
Oh yeah, sorry. So how do you, what do you do when the LLM makes up code that doesn't really work? All right, like it'll.
New API names or new function names.
Yeah, it'll just invent a new function name. So what do you do? There's a couple ways. It depends on if I'm vibe coding. If I'm vibe coding, I'll just be like, bad AI, fix this, you're going to jail. Or, if you really wanted to get sophisticated, right, you would take the output of that exec and have a feedback loop, right? Because, you'd catch that exception and then maybe have another agent and say, hey, fix this code. That'd probably be the cooler way to do it. I assume that's how Claude and all these other tools do it. But for me, since I'm not actually building a product. But if I was building a product, I'd probably do something like that to say, show the error. And so the exception is going to be, I can't find this function name. Hopefully the LLM is smart enough. Actually, I've done that with like Claude or ChatGPT. It's like, oh, I'm sorry, this function is made up. Let me try again, and then it'll churn some more. So I try some way to programmatically handle that. I don't know. Yeah.
If you wouldn't mind, I wanted to ask about data prep. So when you do this use case, you use a table with the parking ticket violation.
Yeah.
So when I'm doing similar stuff and have data that have relations, office building have office suites. Those office suites have leasing and tenants.
Yeah.
It is basically hallucinating more.
Mm.
Where I'm asking what about suite number 1270, and it goes, it's not occupied, for example. And then I'm giving a tenant name, and it gives me, this is occupied, but this tenant occupying 1270.
Yeah.
So maybe is there any good resources of how to properly prepare data so it's more, digestible by AI, let's say?
Yeah, I've seen that actually in my coworker Jay, in his code. I noticed he did do a little bit of that. So he'll send the column names, and you could have an agent that does nothing but try to decipher. If the columns are appropriately named, it should be a little better. But at the same time, like you said, if there's missing data or wrong data, I think maybe having some sort of multi-agent setup, right? Because if you get an error is good. Like we can handle an error, coding error, but if you get a wrong answer, that's a little harder to figure out. Yeah, I don't know. I think you'd have to create your own agent to sort of, do some sort of quality assurance on your data. I'm not sure how to do that. Yeah, that's a good question. Yes, sir.
What if you were to have one agent write the test and the other agent will execute it?
That's a good idea.
Just doing a loop.
Yeah. So that would be that multi-agent setup. If I had more time, I'd probably want to play with that, right? Where in the last line of code where it executes, I'd want to take that output and see if it threw an exception. Have another agent that does nothing but check for exceptions. And then send that exception, maybe bundle it up and make that a new prompt or something like that. I don't know.
Or have the first agent make a unit test.
So I actually heard a podcast today about unit testing there. I think it's called Blitzy, is a commercial product that will just give you great coverage of unit tests across your whole, you give it your whole code base and it would generate unit tests for you. It's kind of like a good AI use case. It's a good idea. Yeah. Yes, sir.
So what's NVIDIA's answer to the flux capacitor question about what's the key difference between an LLM and an agent?
I think that's kind of philosophical right now, right? This is some cutting edge stuff.
Because it feels like agents are kind of hypeware.
Well, yeah, I can see that opinion. For me, like I kind of try to show that in essence, right? All I'm doing is calling an LLM.
Right.
But what I do with that response, I think, and this is my opinion, I think is what makes it an agent. So like when I'm using ChatGPT and I just want an answer to something, I think of that as an LLM use case. But if I code something and I get a response and then I run that code to get an answer, to create a plot, I think of that, I think that is kind of gradiating into more of the agent.
Okay.
But this is so new, and there's marketing terms and there's like, academia, what they call things. And so I think right now it's so new that there's no, but I agree, there's, if there's a Venn diagram, they'd be almost over each other. But to me, the difference is, what do you do with the response? Or how do I feed the LLM? I think those two things are kind of what makes it more agentic. That's how I think of it. And the question was, what's the difference between LLM, using an LLM and an agent? So it's really kind of, I think, if you make an application from it and do more than just question and answer. I think once you get beyond that, it's more agentic. Yes, sir.
Yeah, how do you choose which model you use?
For me, so you can go to the model card. Whoops. Oh yeah, sorry. How do you choose which model to use, right?
We've got about 5-8 minutes.
Okay. So how do you choose a model, right? And all these people who make models, all these organizations like Meta makes Llama, there's just so many models out there. So one thing you can do is, if you go to this build.nvidia.com, you can filter by use case, okay? And so here we have code generation, and then you can see all of these. And if you click on one, I'll just choose random, Falcon 37B instruct. Sure. All right. You get a model card, okay? And this will tell you all about it. Another thing you can do, I like to go to Hugging Face. And if I say click on models, whoops, and then you can sort by trending, or you can sort by most likes. And then over here, you can choose the use case. One thing, since I'm not hosting it locally, I'm using just a giant, I'll look at the one with the most parameters, not a very scientific, way to do it, but, I look at how new is it, who built it. Like if NVIDIA built it, obviously I'm a little biased towards Nemotron because I know the engineers that worked on it, so the use case, how big it is, since I'm using it. It's hosted by someone else. I'm not trying to host it locally. I don't have to use a 7 billion parameter one. I can use a big one. So it's really trial and error as well too. So all of those things, use case, how new is it, size, for the most part, the bigger, supposedly the better, right? And then trial and error, I would say, that's my method. I don't know if it's the right one, but that's how I do it. Sir.
So there are some agentic frameworks like N8M where you design your workflow of agents and it uses MCP architecture behind the scene. So is there any mechanism here to create the flow of agents graphically?
Yeah, that's kind of what this Streamlit here is. Oh, sorry, yeah. So these agents are starting to interact more. There's lots of frameworks. How do you get to, is there a way to visualize the interactions, that sort of thing? And so there's commercial products, right, that do it. And then there's, actually I was going to cover this, there is, let's see here, Codex. Codex is an open source kind of a coding agent system. I've not used it yet. I want to. It's on my to-do list. There's also Cursor AI. I have used this one. If you're familiar with Visual Studio, then this is a commercial product. Over on the right side, you choose which LLM, and then you can see its train of thought. Actually, in hours, you can kind of visualize what it's thinking right here or the code that it spits out. But this is such a brand new field. No one has really kind of standardized it yet. The one thing that seems to be standardized, like you said, is the MCP. I think I have a slide on that. So Model Context Protocol. And then there's the A2A or Agent to Agent protocol. I think it's a protocol. These are brand new. They seem to be standardized. Usually, when companies are competing, they don't like to standardize, use other company standards, but they seem to be doing that in this case. The A2A protocol. I don't have the right answer, but if I were to ask Claude or ChatGPT, I would say, hey, Claude, tell me about A2A, right? How do I visualize A2A or something like that? Yeah.
In a way, when you're building an agent, can you say that, okay, I selected this model, now moving forward, I am going to iterate on the agent and model together, like the model something like becomes, like, picks up billion parameters, I can reduce that to billion parameters and something managed for that particular agent. Do you see that?
Yeah, that's a good idea. I have not seen that. The question is, if you build this agent, remember we copied and pasted the name of the model. That's a really good idea to kind of iterate over different LLMs, different models. Or maybe if you're having two agents that talk to each other, you might have a different model for this agent and then that sort of thing.
Yeah, let's choose Llama 3.1, right? And Llama will iterate on its own value, right? The 4 will come, 3.5 will come.
Yeah.
But then you say that, okay, I created agent version 1 with 3.1.
Yeah.
And now I want to create agent version 2. And whatever the changes in the model, I won't tie that to changes what I'm making version 2.
Ah.
I'm not specifically to the, is that something?
Yeah, I guess so essentially you're making a pipeline. So the question is if I'm using 3.1 and I make my agent around 3.1, if I understand you correctly, and 4, there is a 4, right? There's a Llama 4, and Llama 4 comes out, I want to, I guess, automatically update your agent, kind of like a CI/CD pipeline.
Yeah, I want to just change the model in a way that
Yeah.
but we can't really change the model. I mean, that's outside of the agent.
I mean, you could change the model like in this code here. If I just copy and paste a new model name, like right here, if I put Llama 4 blah blah blah, then it'll start using another model. And you could get tricky and start coding out. You could, if you had a UI for this, you could let your user like right here. Jay put a nice little thing here. You could make a drop down to choose a different model. you know. Actually, in ChatGPT and Claude, you choose your model. So I feel like there's a way to do it. You should build it.
We got maybe 2 or 3 minutes.
All right.
Yeah.
Any more questions?
So I think there was a question about agent orchestration, and if there are any questions on agent orchestration, a couple of questions.
I bet there is. I don't know what they are. Like A2A protocol.
So LangGraph and LangChain and LangSmith are like the most popular kind of
Yeah.
agent orchestration tools. There was a question, a couple of
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's a good idea. Frank.
William, I get frustrated sometimes with my own mistakes, and as I get more and more complicated, stuff slowing down. Did I hear you correctly that using that accelerator line can add like up to 100x multiplier to speed?
Absolutely. So I play. Part of my job is to play with that, and I've seen without using it. I went to bed, woke up the next day, still running. I put it in there, and it was like less than a second.
Be sure to repeat that question.
Okay, sorry. Yeah. So adding that one line, loadEXT, cuDF.pandas to your pandas code, Spark, whatever you're running, that can save you hours for certain algorithms, certain functions, or minutes. And you don't have to change any code. So it's really cool library. It's open source. Check it out. Yeah.
You good?
Is that good?
One question. The Agent AIQ framework, Agent AIQ toolkit that was introduced in the current GTC recently, right?
Okay.
So is it an orchestration framework?
I don't know. I'm not sure. It's a good question. We can look it up. What is it? Say it again.
Agent AIQ.
Agent. Oh, yeah. Agent AIQ. Ooh, the LLM's going to tell us what it is. Is that right? That doesn't seem right. Agent Intelligence Toolkit. Ah, good call.
That's still in my to-do list.
Nice. Appreciate you. All right.
Any final,
So
where can they find you if they have questions?
If you want to find me, if you want to hit me up, connect with me on LinkedIn. Send me questions there. Let's build something together. Hopefully, I've the way I was inspired, how easy this is, how simple an agent really is under the hood. Hopefully, I've revealed that to you, and that you can start building your own agent today or tonight. Whenever you feel inspired to do so. Thank you, everyone.
All right, thank you. All right, William, great job. Great job. All right. Okay, so we're going to wrap this up in just the next few minutes. You have been very patient. William, great job. I thought the presentation was great.
Thank you.
I listened to the entire thing. Sometimes I have to step out or field emails, and I didn't do that a single time tonight. So thank you very much. Okay, so with that said, our next meetup will be Tuesday evening, August the 12th at Fidelity Investments. The topic of that meetup will be jobs. I know we're going to change it up a little bit. It's not going to be an overly technical meetup. That's what we normally do. But I think jobs are sort of top of mind for everyone because the jobs landscape has changed so much. So we're going to try to go behind the scenes, provide some insight as to what's going on at some of the region's largest companies. We're going to have a panel discussion with hiring managers and things like that. And then Taylor Dessine is with Torque. From Torque.dev is going to be our guest speaker for that night, and then he will moderate the actual panel. So that's Tuesday evening, August the 12th. Early Bird opened up for All Things Open 2025 today, so tickets went on sale, just $99 for both core days, October the 13th and 14th. That's a Monday and Tuesday at the Raleigh Convention Center. I would encourage you to take advantage of that. That deal's good through July 1st, so anything you can do to help us out there would be great, and try to help us spread the word as well. Do we have any other organizers here that want to promote an event, or is there another event coming up here in the Triangle that our community might be interested in? Mark, do you have anything?
We're going to do something in June or July at Crank Arm in Raleigh.
Okay.
But I think we're going to, with the summer and the holidays,
Yeah.
we're going to figure out. But,
yeah.
But yeah.
Summer's always a tough time because people are traveling and everything like that. July is especially tough. That's why we're going to skip July for a meetup. We'll probably announce a social here for the month of July, just to give you a chance to network with colleagues and potential partners and things like that. But Mark Hinkle runs the RTP's largest AI specific meetup, and you said that you're going to do something at Crank Arm Brewery here soon. You're going to announce that, so be on the lookout for that as well. Okay. Anyone else? Yeah, Brad. Yeah. Oh, sure. Yeah. Come on. Yeah.
Just two things. If you parked in the satellite lot, you might get lost walking over there, believe it or not, because it gets confusing. So have one of our folks here help you get over there if you parked in the satellite lot. And also, we're going to have two of our interns show Granite running in various ways. So if you want to see it, they'll set that up real fast.
Yeah, and those demos are going to be at the table over there. So I think they're in the process of setting up. Also, the promo posters that I mentioned before, that I did not have one with me when I had mentioned it. This is sort of what they look like. I know you can't see it from where you're sitting, but they are pretty handy dandy. They're 11 by 17, and if you want to hang one up at your office or just use it, or maybe just have for your, in your own individual capacity, just as a collector's item, you're more than welcome to take one. We've got them in a box right over there. Yep, you got it. Yeah, she's actually holding one up. Thank you. Sorry to put you on the spot, but you were doing such a good job. So anyway, yes.
One other event, B-Sides RDU is September 12th.
Oh, cool.
So that's a security focused.
One of my favorite events. Yeah, B-Sides RDU is, you said September the...
It starts Friday, September the 12th.
Okay, Friday, September the 12th. That's one of my personal favorite events. I've gone to a number of B-Sides. They're all over the country. They're in multiple cities and things like that. But the RDU one is very, very good. Yes, sir.
There should be a chapter of the Applied AI Association starting with events in August.
Okay, so the AI Applied Association is going to start a series of events in August. Okay, look, everyone that had an event or wanted to promote an event, forward it to us, forward it to me through Meetup or at Todd at allthingsopen.org. We always produce show notes. We always create a summary of each event. We'll have the recording ready to go along with some pictures and everything like that. We'll try to get that out by the end of this week, but we do include show notes. There's a show notes component of it, and it'll include links to a lot of these things. Be sure to get a shirt if you hadn't already got one before you go. Be sure to do the Granite demo right over here on the table before you go, and we hope to see you on Tuesday evening, August the 12th. Thank you all for joining us. Thanks.
Thank you.